Hi there, welcome to this edition of the Capitol Update. I'm happy that on this taping we have all three legislatures with us again, and we have some interesting conversations for you today, so sit back and enjoy what the legislators have to say to you. Senator, great to see you again. You missed our last taping.
Sure, thanks
Curious,
for being here.
well, sorry for interrupting you. I'm curious, what have you been doing since session let out?
So what have we been doing with our summers? I enjoyed my summer with a little bit with my family, but I was also able to do some touring. I was able to go to the Polymet facility up in Hoyt Lakes, and I was able to see their non-ferrous mining operation, their proposed mining operation that they're currently going through permitting on. And it's really incredible how they're reusing a taconite mine that had closed about 10 years ago. And now they're using the same equipment. They're going to use basically the same footprint, and they're also going to be improving the tailings pond so that right now there's some leakage going on. They're going to improve the environment, improve the tailings pond, and be able to provide with direct jobs, it's 350 jobs, but they're also saying there's 650, or it could be the other way around, about 1,000 jobs up onto the Iron Range. So I think it's a great opportunity for Minnesota, and it was a great time to go up there. I've also been looking at energy, because I serve on the Energy and Environment Committee, so I was able to stand on top of an active, fully functional, 100% powering nuclear reactor, which I thought was interesting.
Yes, and you're here to talk about it.
Yes, and I glow in the dark.
Yes.
So it's been great.
So fantastic. Again, thank you for your service, and thanks for being back on the show.
Sure.
So Representative Pugh.
Well, thanks, Randy. It's been a really busy interim, surprisingly busy, and all good. I have attended a number of legislative conferences, and so fantastic to meet other legislators from other states and hear what is going on there. And there are a lot of applications here, so I look forward to bringing some of that back home here. And I've been meeting with constituents on an ongoing basis. So many, of course, have issues and concerns that surface. It doesn't only happen limited to the legislative session, so I've really enjoyed that as well, and it's just been really, really great.
So, Representative, knowing you, this means you have 4 or 5 new reams of notes because you take notes from
yes, I have taken copious notes, no surprise,
yes.
at every event that I attend, and I have been putting myself out there in a really big way to learn as much as I can, especially as a first-term legislator. I have more to learn than what I know, and have really, really gained a lot.
Well, good.
Look forward to the session starting at the end of February.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Representative Hertaus, I mean, you and I speak a lot, but the people don't know. What have you been doing since the last taping and through the summer and early autumn?
Well, thanks.
Besides hunting, of course.
Thanks, Randy. and I can attest to Representative Pugh's prolific note-taking because her office is right next to mine,
right.
And I can see the stacks of notes. Well, this summer has been a busy summer. Actually, as a representative, there's no shortage of scheduling requests to come and attend different functions and different activities, so certainly that's kept the calendar full. But when we talked last, I had the opportunity to go down to Norfolk, Virginia for the commissioning of the USS Minnesota. That was really exciting. It was really great to see, especially with Veterans Day, kind of a reminder yesterday of the commitment and the sacrifice that our enlisted do for us. So that was really exciting to see that we were giving them a great piece of equipment to do their job. And we also got to visit a couple of other ships in the port at that time. In addition, I had a chance to go on a tour of northern Minnesota, also like Senator Osmek, only mine was centered about school trust lands. And so we did a little bit of an overnight travel, and that too was at our own expense. And the DNR provided the bus, but everything else, the lodging and food, was at our own expense. But we got to observe how the DNR is managing the school trust lands. Most Minnesotans probably don't realize that there's about 2 million acres of land in Minnesota that belongs to the school trust. And so these largely are forest lands and are being managed as such that the revenue from it goes to the school trust. And then we also learned about the mining operations, and wouldn't you know that as fate might have it, quite a few precious minerals lie underneath school trust lands, so there was discussion about that. Thirdly, my wife and I celebrated a kind of a landmark. We got married very young, but we celebrated our 40th wedding
Wow,
anniversary.
congratulations.
Thank you.
To you and Mrs. Hertaus.
Yeah, and so anyway, we did a little bit of travel associated with that. At the end of session last year, I told my wife we needed to do something special, and so we made plans at the end of session in May to see what this Oktoberfest was all about over in Germany. So that's what we did.
Well, that's very nice. Here I thought you were going to say you put her in the car and went through a McDonald's drive-through.
No, not Jerry.
Big Mac.
That's
Nothing
right.
but the best for my wife.
Two for you, baby. So, I think it's great that we just did this because I don't think a lot of people realize just how busy senators and representatives are, even when session is not in place. So I'm glad we took a little bit of time here to talk about this. You guys are working. I know whenever I'm around at events, I see each or all of you at any given time. So thank you for your commitment, not just during session and the weeks leading up to it, but all year round. So thank you for that very much. Senator, I wanted to talk a little bit about something that is very near and dear to both of us as past city council and mayor people, and that's the LGA bill that passed during the session and the large increase that it was. And I'm going to stop on that because I get a little fueled up about this because I'm not a fan of LGA. As a mayor of Long Lake, we pulled that out of our budget. But this is a bigger topic than Long Lake in our little budget, and I want to hand that over to you because I know that you get fueled by the same topic as I do.
Right, I spent 11 years on a city council, so I'm very, very aware. We actually had completely lost our HACA, which was a different aid program back in the early 2000s, and then LGA went away. And you know what? I went into Steve Svigum's office when he was the Speaker of the House and pointed my finger at him and said, "You stripped me of every state aid, but you did the right thing." Because cities have now become way too reliant on this type of funding from the state to run their operations. Property taxes are designed to pay for your fire and your police and your services, and we've gotten away from that. So what in the tax bill, they put in 82, I think it was either 80 or 82 million dollars of new local government aid. Now we're starting to see what's happening. A couple of cities in this district did receive increases or received brand new money. City of Mound being an example, they actually received $300,000 of fresh, clean money from the state of Minnesota. Now, if I was still on the Mound Council, well, yeah, you're right, it isn't quite clean. But if I was on the council, I guess I'd be sort of happy because I've got all this money, but they are doing the right thing, which was the majority party, the DFL, said that this is going to be property tax relief. Well, we're finding out in areas where you have responsible city governments that are keeping an eye on taxes and maintaining it, and I give Mound credit for this. I was there to start it, and I'm glad that the direction we started is still there, that Mound is going to be reducing their levy, or they're taking this money into account. Other jurisdictions are not. Minneapolis is giving a tiny 0.5% cut. Meanwhile, they got, with the sales tax reduction, they got about $17 million. They're giving back $2 million back to their taxpayers. Right. That's at least better than what St. Paul is doing. St. Paul is getting over $12.5 million between the sales tax exemption and the new money, and they're not giving any property tax relief. So what's happening here is between that and the blob, which is the Bach Legislative Office building of $90 million. People talk about where are we going to get money to pay for reducing the impact of the warehouse tax? Where are we going to get the money to wipe out the farm implement tax? Well, I got $170 million. You can do it. You can reverse the LGA cuts, and you can take back we cannot build the Senate office building that we honestly don't need. And that's those type of things. What would I rather have? A better economy in Minnesota with more jobs, or send those jobs out of state but have a cushy new office? I know what my answer is.
Yeah, I think I know what your answer is as well. I do find it interesting that there was a lawsuit filed a week ago about the Senate office building, that it actually didn't follow protocol, that this is a bonding bill and it was pushed through your normal, I'm losing the words right now, the normal
It didn't
budget.
follow proper channels. I mean, it did not, I believe the suit is predicated on that the title of the bill, it doesn't belong with the title of the bill. That the essence of that is a bonding package, and that should have been within a bonding bill and not within a tax bill.
Right.
And I think it's possible that the Supreme Court may decide, Justice Page has outwardly said in the last time that something like this came up, was that the legislature has to be taught a lesson. You can't just start throwing things in to a title of a bill that have no business in there. So
Right.
could this actually be overturned? The problem is there's no severability within the bill. So either they're going to they have to take the whole bill down and take the whole piece of legislation down, or they're going to be pretty stuck. My hope is they take the bill down and we go back and do it the right way, which is the way it should have been done, and not had it done in the dark of night 2 minutes before session ended.
Yeah, I agree with that. So Representative Pugh, I'm going to actually jump over to you because David, Senator, just spoke about the warehouse tax. And Representative Hertaus, I know that you have some discussion, or we've had discussions on the warehouse bill, and your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, thank you, Randy. The warehousing tax is a rather unique tax in that it's uniquely applied in Minnesota and Minnesota only. There are a few other states that do have a warehousing tax, but it's really a business-to-business tax in its entirety. Minnesota is unique in that it has single-handedly identified one small sector of the business community and decided to impose a sales tax on it. It's having a very negative effect, and particularly right in our own district. Senator Osmek and myself were on a radio show just a couple of weeks ago with one of our constituent businesses, Skybridge Incorporated, which is resident in my home community of Greenfield, employs more than 250 people.
And what does Skybridge do for?
Well, Skybridge, principally, you might refer to it as a fulfillment center for a lot of the premium things like the rewards on the Coca-Cola bottle caps, or other types of things where you redeem things. Merchants can hire a company like this to do the fulfillment of those requests in the bonus and rewards. So, for example, the merchants will send in their products to the warehouse by the semi-load, and it comes in on pallets, and they will process each fulfillment request piece by piece. So every single thing that came in on a semi and a pallet goes out one piece at a time.
Sure.
And they process about 35,000 fulfillments a day. So it's quite a big operation and quite a few jobs. But they operate on single-digit profit margins, and when suddenly you impose a 7% sales tax on single-digit profit margins, you can see how devastating this is. Now, not only is it affecting Skybridge, there's a couple of other constituents who I won't name names because Skybridge went public on the radio about it, but there's a couple others that are in the warehousing industry in terms of new construction. One of our constituent owners has plants in other states as well. The other states' recovery in construction warehousing has continued to move forward as we're gaining some momentum out of the recession. But after the warehousing tax was passed in Minnesota, Minnesota was performing like the other states until that happened. And he reports to me that it's pretty well dead in the water and has really caused a concern for the 700 jobs that are employed in that industry. We should also be concerned about what this warehousing tax will do in terms of the overall values of warehousing space. It's having a downward or detrimental effect on leasehold rates. It is also having a downward effect on new construction. And as we put these downward pressures on warehousing facilities, it's going to put downward pressure or value on those properties, which means that cities and towns will have a lowered tax capacity to levy the property taxes in which they pay for services locally. And it will really demand or create a shift onto other classes of properties, such as individual homeowners and homesteads, by shifting this. So it's always a neat little trick, I think, with a lot of tax policy, is that you can impose something and you think it doesn't affect you. As long as it's not in my backyard, nobody cares.
Right.
But eventually it comes full circle to roost, and really is kind of a hidden tax on consumers. And it'll end up that way as well.
So do you think we're going to revisit this during the next session? I mean, we should talk about this in the next show, but do you think this will come up?
Well, we hoped that during the special session that was called on September 9th, that the warehousing tax and the farm repair tax were going to be two topics that would be discussed. The majority insisted that there was no reason to bring this up, that there's plenty of time to confer and consult about this when the session starts at the end of February. But we need to remind everyone that this does go into effect on April 1st, so we'll have to act quickly within the first 30 days of the session to circumvent this from being imposed. The question has always been, how are you going to pay for it? Senator Osmek has mentioned a good item. The fiscal impact of the warehouse tax was approximately $90 million. Coincidentally, that happens to match the cost of the state office building. So there's a reason to pay for it. Let's not build the office building, and let's let Minnesotans keep their jobs.
Perfect. We're going to take a break here, and we can come back if we need to. We can touch up on the warehouse tax and then move on to the other topics. Please hold on for a moment. We'll be right back.
Different words describe different people. But in the eyes of the law, there's one that fits us all. Human right number 7. We're all equal before the law. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
Well, welcome back. We're going to start talking in this session about MNsure, and the representative that wants to speak most about this is Representative Pugh. We've been hearing a lot about MNsure and ACA, the Obamacare. I mean, you can't turn a TV on without hearing something about this, and MNsure, with its difficulties on the rollout, but why don't I turn it over to you and you can talk about MNsure and get us up to speed.
Well, great. And the reason that I wanted to talk about that is because it's been most definitely a topic of conversation brought to me by constituents, whether it's business owners or just individuals. I've been hearing a lot about it lately. And you know, my colleagues brought up and did so just very eloquently the challenges that our communities and our businesses, our individuals too, are going to be facing, and this burden of healthcare, health insurance is going to be really, really significant as well. I've spoken with individual constituents who have lost their healthcare altogether. A number of them are part of this 140,000 already that have lost their health insurance. And I've spoken with business owners, one of whom has really touched me, a business owner of 100 employees, in business for over 30 years, prided themselves in offering the very best coverage for their not only employees but their families, right, and received a 30% increase in the renewal. And which was very disturbing. You can't continue to do your business with a 30% increase without having it affect something else. And after having spent the week attempting to at least consider what MNsure had to offer, busy signals and individuals who really weren't clear about what the situation was, learned it would be between a 40 and 50% increase through MNsure. So there's some grave concerns. This program, people are unsure about MNsure. Grave concerns about it not having been ready for prime time. Clearly isn't. There are still data practices and privacy issues that are very forthcoming. Clearly, individuals and companies are not going to be able to keep their plan and keep their doctor, not to mention costs that are skyrocketing. Sure. So, big issue for me.
You mentioned something, and this is in my world as a guy who does Sarbanes-Oxley and control auditing. When the 1,600 names were released, I guess it's been 2 months ago now, there's software readily available that X's that stuff out so that it can't leave a premise. And we test for this every single day when we're doing these things. I'm so shocked that the state of Minnesota, who mandates some of this upon the very companies that I audit, did not have this in place for themselves to protect what I think is some of the only information that some of these individuals may have had, their social security number and their personal information, and they disregarded it like it was a commodity, and that concerns me to absolutely no end. I wanted to make just one other point that you brought up, Representative. 140,000 people have been denied or told that they have to go to different plans. But I think it's important, and I'm going to sound like Johnny Downer here, but that's a rolling number because those are the people that had to get new insurance right now, and every month there's another roll of people that they're no longer available to go on their old plan, and they have to go out there and look again, which MNsure might be the way that they go, and they're going to get the same bad news as well. So the bad news isn't over for all of Minnesota yet with that, and I just want to be a little bit clear with that.
Well, and the Office of the Legislative Auditor has come out this past week, in fact, late last week, and has highlighted from top to bottom all of the issues.
Right. But I thought it was a pretty good report. I mean,
yes, it was
5 points or 6 points that he put out there just to topside everything. Now start digging into it, and it's going to be even larger than that. Representative Hertaus, you look like you want to add to the conversation.
Well, yes. I mean, to the point that you made, it is a rolling number. If you extrapolate 140,000 people being denied their individual renewals times 12 months, then you're getting close to 2 million people.
Right.
And if you take that times the 50 states, that's 100 million people, and that seems to coincide with the now revised numbers that about 95 million Americans under the Affordable Care Act are going to find that their plans do not fit or conform to the mandates of ACA, and that they are going to get denial forms. Now, it's troubling when we're rolling out this MNsure. It was plagued with some problems in the beginning, and we hope that they can get it right and that it can work to the extent that everyone, I think, tends to agree, whether you're Republican or Democrat, that you want people to be able to take care of themselves and have affordable insurance and have options to be able to keep that cost down. But let's really question, what is an exchange? We are talking about creating a competitive marketplace. And as though government is creating this inanimate object called the marketplace, how is it a marketplace and how is it fair and competitive when only if you purchase it on the exchange, you'll be subsidized to the level of 400% of the poverty level? What that translates to is that $90,000 of household income for a family of 4 qualifies for subsidies. Now, you would have to ask the question, very clean and simple, why can't you get those subsidies if you buy it in the private market versus the exchange? That's not a fair and competitive marketplace. This clearly was designed to destroy the private marketplace and cause a gravitation of people losing their policies. And now we've heard, the corrections and the spin just recently with regard to the president saying you can keep your insurance if you like your insurance, period. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, period. That's not happening. So far now, since we last got data, which was on November 1st, the performance of MNsure was pretty dismal. In the last 12 days, they are now claiming that there's nearly 11,000 enrollees, which is substantially more than happened in the first 30 days of the rollout. But it's important to also note that the folks that are enrolling, 80% of them are already people who were covered under MNCare, our old plan, or Medicaid. So we've got about 17% of MNCare applicants are rolling over to the MNsure plan, and about another 67% of the applicants are Medicaid, and only about 1,700 individuals, slightly under 1,800 individuals, have actually started the application process for the individual coverage under
to actually
MNsure.
get coverage that they didn't have, or some sort of coverage previous.
So I think in closing, what my thoughts are is this healthcare really isn't a right. Healthcare is not a right. A right is something that you choose to do for yourself. We have the right to choose to have free speech, the right to free religion, the right to your private property and your free enjoyment. But this has become, or is becoming, an entitlement. And in an entitlement, you don't have a right to choose what your product options are going to be. You're going to get what the government tells you you can get. And I think that's a defining difference. You cannot circumvent the difference and the differentiation between these two issues of whether it's a right or whether it's an entitlement, because then you will have other people choose for you what you will be covered for.
Right. Representative Pugh,
Well, I just wanted to add one point of, it's not really clarification, but Jerry mentioned about the several hundred, which sounds good in Minnesota, of Minnesotans who have enrolled in the program. Well, what I just heard today was that 0 have officially enrolled. Yes, there are the number 1,700 or whatever that number is. It's like the analogy I would use is like Amazon, where people have shopped and they're in the basket. What they've selected is in the basket, in the shopping cart. But there are 0 in Minnesota.
It's just a bookings report
at this point that have actually enrolled. So I think that just paints an even clearer picture to my point earlier that this was not ready for prime time. Certainly isn't materializing to the degree that it was expected.
I do want to add one thing and then let the Senator finish up. My one concern about the 140,000 people who have not been allowed to get onto MNsure yet or were denied their insurance and now they have to look. Smart businesses, my business that I work for, cities have done this. They changed their expiration date to be December 31st so they didn't have to worry about this. They bought them 6 months. I think we're end loaded on the numbers. I think you're going to see that it might be 5%, 5%, 5%, 8%, 10%, and that last month is going to be a much larger number than anyone's expecting if they were smart to try and avoid having that increase early in the year.
I think one of the key points here, and Jerry alluded to it, is we were told if you like your insurance, you get to keep it. Government, Washington, D.C., is saying here is the criteria which we govern, and we say this is a good plan, this is a bad plan. We never were told this back in 2009 when this was originally coming through. We were sold a package saying if you didn't want to have maternity care, you didn't have to have it because your policy didn't have it. Now, what's happening?
Right.
People who are 55, 60 years old, single, they don't need that type of coverage, but they're being forced to have it by the federal government. Why? Because they're trying to cost shift. That's what they're trying to do, is make people buy something that they don't need so that they can pay for others who need it. And we should be, as Americans, allowed to buy what we want to buy and purchase it on the free market. The exchanges are unnecessary. Companies were already selling insurance. Let us buy the packages and keep the packages that we want. And if we don't want to have maternity leave or maternity coverage or mental health benefits or chemical dependency or whatever the case might be, we as consumers should have that right, not the government.
I agree. Well, we spent the second half here talking about MNsure, but it is a big deal. This conversation is not going away. ACA is not going away. I suspect that for the next year, 2 years, we're going to be having these conversations as they try to get it right, whatever that looks like in 2, 3, 4 years. But Senator, Representatives, I want to thank all of you for being here. I think we should reconvene again just before the start of the next session. We'll have a lot of information. I know it's supposed to be just a bonding session, or as Representative Pugh said, Dayton likes to call it, Governor Dayton wants to call it the unsession. Let's see how much of an
Whatever that
unsession
looks
this
like.
really, exactly, how much this really looks like, and we can start talking about what we can expect, and then we'll have you back again after. So again, thank all of you for joining us today.
Sounds great. Thanks,
So,
Randy.
thank you for joining us. Remember, if you have any questions about what we talked about today or any other questions, the Senator and Representative would love to hear from you. We'll see you next time on Capitol Update.